So with that, I know you're not here to see me, but why don't we bring out the guy you're here to see, Mr. Kevin Smith.
Let's get to it because we don't have much time, and it's weird. I spent a lot of time getting blazed for the last hour trying to think of how to open it, because you only get one chance to do Hall H. I only get one opportunity a year to come up and play Hall H. It's like getting a blowjob from my wife, only once a year, man. So I always want to make it count. So I was like, how do I go out? What do I tell them and stuff? And I realized there was a perfect story that I wanted to tell you. But in order to tell you that story, I got to tell another longer story. It might kind of cut into, somebody might ask the question, so this might preempt you asking the question anyway, but I'm only telling you this, not because I'm bragging, but because I want to tell you the second story, okay? I was in England recently, and I went to the set of Star Wars Episode 7. J.J. Abrams was very kind. He sent me an email and said, hey man, I was thinking of you. Why don't you, how you doing, man? We started the movie. If you're ever in England while we're shooting, why don't you stop by and say hello and stuff? And we were just heading out to England with the Jay and Silent Bob Get Old Hollywood Babylon podcast tour. So I wrote him back and I was like, dude, I'm coming to London, man. So like, I will totally come visit the set. And he was like, oh, that rocks, man. I'll put you in touch with my assistant. He put me in touch with Morgan and shit. And the plans were made for me to come visit to see the fucking Star Wars Episode 7 set. Me, the guy who always blabs his mouth and shit. But still, I was like, right on. And that's when I started thinking about it. I told my wife, I was just like, fucking J.J. Abrams invited me to the set, man, to go to Episode 7. And she's like, I didn't think you and J.J. were all that close. And I was like, oh my God, you're right, man. It's like, it's not like we're friendly, but it's not like, you know, we go over each other's house very often and stuff. So I'm like going, oh my God, maybe this dude didn't mean to write me an email at all. Like maybe he meant Kevin Costner or some shit like that. So I got real tight about it, so I sent him an email back and I was like, hey man, looks like I'm coming to visit you, everything's cool and shit, but I just want to throw this out there in case maybe you hit the wrong Kevin in your address book, man. This is Kevin Smith, the guy that made Clerks. Sent the email and shit, and within 10 minutes got an email back from JJ, 2 words, just said, oh fuck. So they didn't cancel me and they let me go to the set for Star Wars Episode 7. I've talked about other places, so I'll do a truncated version of it for you here. I've thought about it a little since it happened and since I spoke about it that first weekend. You can probably see it somewhere online. But in a nutshell, I signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, not allowed to say a lot of the things that I saw, so I've been very careful about the things that I've said and whatnot. When I first got there, you walk onto the lot at Pinewood Studios, you get to the Lucasfilm offices, there is a sign hanging up where they make you sign the NDA. There's a sign hanging up, looks like one of those old World War II posters, you know, propaganda posters. And it features like Captain Nita or Admiral Piet from, you know, the Imperial Star Bridge of the Star of the Executioner or whatever. Two Imperial generals, one going like this. And it says, loose lips sink starships. And I was like, that's real cute, that's clever. And JJ's assistant was like, he hung that up just for you. So I was like, fair enough, fair enough. So I signed a bunch of shit, said I can't tell you what I saw and stuff, but I'll kind of work around it to tell you what was there. What was there, honestly, was absolute magic. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been, doing what I do for a living, sometimes well, sometimes not well, depends on who you ask, for 2 decades now. And when you make the sausage, when you get to see behind the scenes and whatnot, it's not as magical anymore, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I don't view movies through the same prism most people do. I don't view them as like, I would do that better, because I never would do that. Most movies I watch and be like, how'd they get that done? You know, I'm still fucking amazed 2 decades in. But 2 decades in, you know how movies come together. It's like knowing how the magician does the tricks. And even though you can enjoy a good stage show, at the end of the day, you know, it's movies, it's your job or something like that. So that's the prism through which I view most movies. That's why when movies capture my imagination or heart, like the Marvel movies or something like that, or fucking, Batman movies, that like takes me back to a place where I'm like, oh, it thrills me. There's something inside that'll still fucking thrill me. So when I went to that set, man, I went like in a very clinical directorial fashion. I'm a guy who works in the movie industry and stuff, and I was lucky enough to get invited to the set of a sequel to a movie that when I was a kid, I was absolutely in love with. Those movies defined my childhood and stuff. So for me, I'm like, this is great, what a cool opportunity. But it was all here. Everything so far is in my head, my very clinical head and stuff, and I'm going, this is cool, I'm gonna go to the set, I'll see JJ, I'll see if they're making the movie, how they're making the movie, this is gonna be neat. And it was very superficial, so I get there, and it's a real world, you know, they had sets. It wasn't like a series of blue screens with somebody standing in front of like a coat rack and they're like, that's gonna be a fucking snow walker. You know, it's actual tactile set. I walked on a set that will actually be in the movie. One day I'll see the scene and be like, holy shit, I was there. I touched the walls of the, and I almost said it, but I touched the walls of the fucking thing. So I was on the set, I saw costumes, I saw, you know, artillery and shit like that. I saw things that, you know, I loved as a kid. It was interesting, man. I was walking across the set and I was like, this is great. He's getting it so right. Like, all the elements were right. It looked like J.J. Abrams had the best set of Star Wars figures ever and was making the best possible movie one could. So, you know, still, very clinically, I'm like, this is cool. Good for him, man. I like him. He's a real cool guy and shit. And he's trying like a fucking motherfucker to make a perfect Star Wars movie. So, you know, I'm like, this is neat. This is all great. Look at you. And I'm going down the list. You got this. You got this. This is so smart. Who's not going to go see this movie? Still very clinical about the whole thing. Still enjoying it on a professional level and shit. Then JJ told his assistant Morgan, he's like, take Kevin to stage M. And I was like, right on, we're going to fucking stage M, man. So, off to stage M, don't know what's on it and shit, but like, you know, I'm sure it's gonna be more Star Warsy and fun and whatnot, and I'm gonna be like, wow, this is all neat. Same way, right now, everything's cool, man. You take my pulse, it's normal. My heart's just beating normally and shit. They get me to stage M, they open up the doors, I walk onto the door, the set of stage M is dark, but you can see there's something fucking huge there and whatnot. And there's a guy, British guy, because it's all in England where they're shooting it. British guy whose job to watch the set. And he goes, do you want me to turn on the lights? And it was so creepy, I thought I was like in a castle movie and shit. Because we were in England, I was like, yeah, fucking please turn on the lights. And he turns on the lights, and it's not just the lights, you know, on the stage. All of a sudden I see a giant set, and what's the lights he needed were the lights inside of what looks like from the outside, the Millennium Falcon. Now, it's on a movie stage, so from the outside it doesn't look like the Falcon as we know it in the movies, but the shape of it and shit like that, I see these, the doors, the opening doorway, the door platform walks up onto the Millennium Falcon. I see it, so I'm like, oh shit, that must be the Millennium Falcon. I read online that people have taken pictures of it being built, and here it is and stuff. So I'm looking at it going, that's real cool. And Morgan goes, do you want to walk on it? And I go, oh fuck, yeah, absolutely. What a kick that'd be, man. Like, I ain't baked, I wish I was, because this would be amazing. You know, because I used to love Star Wars when I was a kid, and here I am on the set, and this is cool, and fucking, I never thought I'd be here, man, so fucking, let's go walking on the fucking set, and I'm gonna step onto the Millennium Falcon. And everything is still clinical, and everything is still right here. It's all in the head, man. And then I take one step on that platform. That same platform that when I was a kid, I had a small version of this fucking shit. That was like my best friend in the world. I slept with it and hugged it because it was like a $35 toy. My parents were like, you better fucking love that. And I loved it, particularly in my teenage years. But the Wookiee did not win, I assure you. So there it is, man. I had that Millennium Falcon as a kid, and many times I walked my figures up the platform and stuff, closed the platform, picked it up, and sailed it through my house and whatnot, made my own version of a Star Wars movie, probably like a Kevin Smith movie, nothing happened, they just talked to each other a lot. But still, I had my own adventures and shit like that. So, first step on the landing platform, the walk path. Fuck, I can't even say it. Pathway. What would you call it? Ramp. Apparently I smoked ramp away. It was worth it. Anyway, so there I am, first step on the ramp. And I swear to God, you know, I'm 43 years old, in about a month or so, less than a month, I'm gonna be 44. With my first step, my 40s disappeared. And then with my next step, I was deep into my early 30s and shit, and suddenly Cop Out disappeared. What a better world it was. Then I took another step and I was in my 20s, circa clerks and shit. When I first got into filmmaking, I was like, oh yeah, this could be cool. And I'll never make Star Wars, but like, I could make a movie too, and blah, blah, blah. And then the next step I take, man, I'm out of my 20s, and I'm in my teenage years, where, you know, I put Star Wars behind me, because I'm like, you don't get pussy if you like Jedis and shit like that. Now you can, but when I was a kid, no. And then one more step, ladies and gentlemen, on the ramp of the Millennium Falcon, and I was 7 years old again. Fat little Kevin Smith, 7 years old, watching a movie called Star Wars and falling in love, starting a lifelong love affair that triggered my imagination. I played with my Star Wars figures endlessly. I had a kid across the street, Pete King, who had come down from Brooklyn. He had even better Star Wars toys than me. We combined our two. We had a massive universe, and we would sit there and make our adventures together and whatnot, always featuring Boba Fett as the lead, fuck everybody else. And there I was, man. All that shit was gone. Like who I am, what I do for a living, the fact that like I know how the sausage is made, and all that bullshit that one tells themselves, you know, as they do something year after year after year, and it goes from being your dream to your job to your career and back, and sometimes like that. All of it was gone, everything stripped away, and I stood there feeling like a fucking kid, and I promise you, this is a true story, I swear to God, I was hit with a gut punch of emotion, and you know my gut's big, so the punch was massive.